religious holiday request form crumpled in his fist as he leaned across his desk. "We can't approve time off for everyone's special days," Devin sneered, tossing the paper back at me. "The Johnson account needs all hands on deck next week." My throat tightened as 23 previous denials flashed through my mind. 7 years at this company, and my one sacred day remained an annual battle, while coworkers took days off for concerts and spa weekends without question. The rejection stung deeper this time. I'd submitted the request 11 weeks in advance with documentation from my faith leader. I gathered the wrinkled form with steady hands, meeting Devin's dismissive gaze. "This observance happens once yearly. I've never missed a deadline or quota." His expression hardened. "Religious mumbo-jumbo doesn't generate revenue, Adamina. Be a team player or reconsider your priorities." As I turned to leave, he added, "The Johnson call is scheduled for 10 a.m. that day. Your presentation section cannot be delegated." What Devin didn't know? I'd already set in motion a plan that would expose years of systematic discrimination, and his career wouldn't survive what came next. Before I tell you how I finally achieved justice after years of religious discrimination, I want to thank you for clicking on this video. My story touches on workplace rights many of us hesitate to defend. If you've ever felt your identity diminished at work, this journey will resonate with you. I'm sharing every raw detail because the tactics used against me might be happening to you or someone you know right now. Stay until the end to discover how documentation became my most powerful weapon, and how one calculated response changed everything. If this story helps even one person stand up for their rights, please hit the like button and subscribe. It helps others find this channel who might need this information desperately. My name is Adamina Whitley, Senior Marketing Strategist with a specialty in international campaigns. I've built my career on attention to detail, creative problem solving, and an ability to bridge cultural divides. My grandmother taught me our family's traditional practices when I was young, and those sacred observances became my anchor through college, early career struggles, and eventually my success at Integrated Dynamics Marketing. My faith isn't flashy or evangelical. It's private, centered on reflection and gratitude. My yearly holy day is the cornerstone of my spiritual practice, requiring uninterrupted prayer and family gathering. I don't discuss it much at work, but it's noted in my personnel file and annual calendar. When I joined Integrated Dynamics, I was transparent about my religious observance during the hiring process. The HR manager assured me the company valued diversity and would accommodate my needs. For the first year, that promise held true. My holy day request was approved without issue, and I returned to work refreshed and more productive. Everything changed when Devin Harper became department head 3 months into my second year. A newcomer to the company with connections to the CEO, he immediately implemented productivity optimization protocols. Vacation requests now required justification forms. Personal days needed 2-week advance notice. Religious accommodations faced unprecedented scrutiny. My first religious holiday request under Devin's leadership was denied, citing operational needs. I appealed to HR, who reluctantly overrode him the day before my observance. Devin scheduled a critical meeting during my absence, then questioned my commitment in my performance review. "Your unavailability during peak periods is concerning," he noted in my file, despite my consistent overtime and weekend work throughout the year. The pattern continued. Each year, my initial request would be denied. Each year, I'd fight through administrative appeals. Each year, Devin found subtle ways to penalize my absence, reassigning clients, excluding me from projects, scheduling important events on my holy day. Meanwhile, my colleagues received time off for weddings, birthdays, even concert tickets. Trey took 3 days for a baseball tournament. Vanessa got a week for her dog's surgery recovery. Devin himself took random Fridays for golf outings. The disparity became impossible to ignore. I began documenting everything, every denial, every approved request for others, every comment suggesting bias. I saved emails where Devin praised team members for weekend work while ignoring my late nights. I recorded dates when similar requests received different responses. I noted which projects were assigned or withdrawn following my religious accommodation requests. By year 4, the pattern was undeniable. I considered legal action but feared being labeled difficult. Instead, I excelled at my work, earning client praise and exceeding targets. I became too valuable to dismiss outright, but Devon's subtle discrimination continued. The situation reached breaking point in my 7th year. The Johnson account, a potential multi-million-dollar client, became our department's focus. As the only team member with experience in their industry, I led the strategy development, working evenings and weekends for months. When the calendar for client presentations was released, I immediately noticed the final pitch was scheduled on my holy day, 11 weeks away. That same day, I submitted my religious accommodation request with extensive documentation, a letter from my faith leader, previous year's approved requests, and a detailed transition plan for my responsibilities. The next morning, Devon called me into his office. "This timing is unfortunate," he said, tapping my request form. "But the Johnson presentation date is fixed. Everyone needs to be present." "I've provided 11 weeks' notice," I replied. "My portion can be presented by Kieran or Zoe. Both are familiar with the strategy." Devon's expression hardened. "Nobody knows this material like you do. The client expects to meet the strategy architect. I've created detailed handover notes and am happy to record a video introduction." "That's not the same as being there, Adamina. This is our biggest opportunity this year. I understand the importance, which is why I've planned so thoroughly for my absence." Devon leaned back. "Your absence patterns are becoming problematic. Not everyone gets days off for their special occasions." "This isn't a special occasion, it's a religious observance protected by workplace equality laws. We can't approve time off for everyone's special days." He snapped, crumpling my request form. "The Johnson account needs all hands on deck. Religious mumbo-jumbo doesn't generate revenue. Be a team player or reconsider your priorities." I gathered the wrinkled form with steady hands. "I'll speak with HR." "Do what you need to," he replied dismissively. "The Johnson call is scheduled for 10 a.m. that day. Your presentation section cannot be delegated." HR was sympathetic, but ineffective. "Devon has final approval on his team's scheduling," they explained. "We can only advise him to reconsider." With my options dwindling, I noticed Marielle Owens, our Chief Operating Officer, attending a company training session. During a break, I approached her carefully. "Excuse me, Ms. Owens. I have a sensitive workplace matter I'd appreciate your guidance on." She gestured to an empty conference room. "What's happening, Adamina?" I presented my documentation chronologically: 7 years of religious accommodation requests, the pattern of initial denials, the contrast with other approved time-off requests, and the coincidental scheduling of critical events on my holy day. I've never missed deadlines. I work overtime regularly, but my one religious observance day each year has become increasingly difficult to protect. I explained. "I'm concerned this pattern constitutes religious discrimination." Marielle reviewed the evidence silently, her expression growing more concerned with each page. "This is troubling. How long have you been documenting this?" 4 years. I hoped the pattern would improve without escalation." She closed the folder. "I'll address this personally. Continue preparing your transition notes for the Johnson presentation, but consider your religious day approved." 2 days later, my leave request appeared on my desk, approved and signed by Marielle herself with a note. "Religious observances are protected. Please enjoy your holy day without interruption." I submitted the approved form to HR without mentioning it to Devon. The weeks passed with intense preparation for the Johnson presentation. I created comprehensive notes, recorded a video walkthrough of my slides, and trained both Kieran and Zoe on my portion. The day before my holy day, Devon stopped by my desk. "Final run-through for Johnson tomorrow at 9 a.m., presentation at 10. Don't be late." As documented in the team calendar, "I'll be observing my religious holiday tomorrow," I reminded him. His smile thinned. "Your request wasn't approved." "It was approved by the COO 3 weeks ago. HR has the documentation." Devon's expression flickered between surprise and anger. "We'll discuss this in the morning," he said, walking away before I could respond. I arrived home that evening to prepare for my holy day. I turned off email notifications and set my phone to emergency contacts only. My family gathered, and we began our evening rituals, entering the peaceful space I'd fought so hard to protect. At 8:47 the next morning, as I sat in meditation with my grandmother's prayer beads, my watch vibrated. A message from Devin: "Team meeting in progress. Where are you?" I silenced it and continued my prayers. At 9:22, another message: "Johnson representatives are arriving. Your absence is unprofessional." At 9:58, the most demanding: "Where are you? The Johnson call is critical." Two more messages followed in quick succession, growing increasingly panicked. After the fifth message, I took a photo of my approved leave form and sent it with a simple reply. As documented, I'm observing my religious holiday today. The COO approved my leave 3 weeks ago. I silenced my device completely and returned to my family gathering, determined to honor the day's meaning without further interruption. That evening, I found 5 voicemails from Devin, each more desperate than the last. "Adamina, the meeting's starting. Call immediately. This absence is unacceptable. The clients are asking for you specifically. I don't know what game you're playing, but your career won't survive this. The presentation is falling apart without your section. Call me now." The final message came hours later, his voice noticeably subdued. "The Johnson representatives have left. They were displeased with our presentation. We'll discuss your actions tomorrow." I also found an email from Marielle. "Please see me first thing when you return to the office. Documentation of today's events may be necessary." The next morning, I dressed carefully and gathered my evidence binder before driving to work. The office atmosphere was tense as I walked to Marielle's office. "Thank you for coming," she said, gesturing to a chair. "I've received concerning reports about yesterday's Johnson presentation." "What happened?" I asked. "The presentation proceeded without you, but during questioning, Johnson's CEO asked specifically about the international strategy components or your section. Devin explained your absence was due to a personal religious day that had been sprung on the team last minute." My heart sank. "That's completely false. I submitted my request 11 weeks in advance." "I'm aware," Marielle said. "Unfortunately, Johnson's CEO, Eliana Johnson, is known for her interfaith advocacy work. She was troubled by Devin's characterization and asked whether accommodating religious diversity was challenging for our company." I waited, sensing there was more. Devin apparently responded that while the company tries to accommodate personal preferences, business priorities must sometimes take precedence over optional observances. He said what? I couldn't hide my shock. Ms. Johnson ended the meeting early. "This morning, we received notification that Johnson Enterprises will not be proceeding with our proposal, citing concerns about our company culture and diversity practices." I sat in stunned silence. "What's more," Marielle continued, "I've discovered your approved leave was deliberately omitted from the team calendar, and the final presentation was rescheduled to your holy day after your request was submitted, not before, as Devin claimed." She slid a document across the desk. "This is an internal investigation report revealing Devin had deliberately forgotten to put your approved leave on the team calendar and had scheduled the critical client call on your holy day, specifically to prove you weren't team-oriented. We've also uncovered emails to other managers characterizing your religious practice as inconvenient theatrics." I felt a complex mix of vindication and grief. Years of subtle discrimination were finally acknowledged, but at what cost to the company? "I never wanted to cause problems," I said quietly. "I just wanted equal respect for my religious practices." "You didn't cause this problem," Marielle assured me. "Devin's discriminatory behavior did, and it's cost us a major client. But more importantly, it violated our values and potentially the law." She handed me another document. "The executive team met this morning. Devin has been removed from his position, effective immediately. We'd like to offer you the department director role." I stared at the offer letter. "Me? Your work has been exceptional for 7 years. Your team respects you. And most importantly, you understand the value of diversity and inclusion, not just as buzzwords, but as practical leadership principles. We need someone who will ensure this never happens again." When I returned to my desk, I found my team gathered nearby, expressions anxious. Is everything okay? Zoe asked. We heard about the Johnson account. I took a deep breath. There are going to be some changes. I gathered my team in the conference room an hour later. Uncertainty hung between us. The Johnson account loss had sent ripples through the department. First, I want to thank you all for your hard work on the Johnson proposal, I began. What happened yesterday wasn't a reflection of your efforts. We heard Devin is gone, Kieran said, voicing what everyone was thinking. Yes, effective immediately. I've been appointed department director. The room fell silent before erupting in surprised congratulations. These people had witnessed my struggles under Devin's leadership without fully understanding the discrimination I'd faced. Why did we lose Johnson? Zoe asked once the noise settled. Their team seemed excited about our strategy. I paused, considering how much to share. The presentation revealed some fundamental issues in our departmental culture. Ms. Johnson was concerned about our commitment to inclusion. Trey frowned. Because you weren't there? Not exactly. It was how my absence was explained, and why it happened in the first place. I took a deep breath and decided transparency was necessary for true change. For years, I've faced obstacles getting time off for my religious observance day, while similar requests from others were routinely approved. Yesterday's presentation was deliberately scheduled on my holy day despite my advance notice. Shock registered on their faces. That's discrimination, Kieran said quietly. Yes, and it cost us the Johnson account. I had no idea, Zoe whispered. You never complained. I documented everything instead, I replied, which is why we're having this conversation now. I outlined my vision for the department: transparent scheduling, equitable time-off policies, and respect for diversity in all forms. I wanted team members to bring their whole selves to work without fear of penalty. Does anyone have questions? I asked. What happens to Devin? Trey asked. He remains with the company in another capacity, I answered carefully. What I didn't share was what Marielle had told me privately. Devin's contract prevents immediate termination without a performance improvement plan. He'll be reassigned to the analytics team, reporting directly to you. The next morning, Devin arrived to find his office nameplate replaced with mine. He stood in the hallway, briefcase clutched tightly, as staff avoided his gaze. Adamina, there's been a misunderstanding, he said when I approached. We should discuss this privately. I gestured to my formerly his office. Come in. Devin took a seat across from me, his typical confidence noticeably diminished. This Johnson situation has been blown completely out of proportion. Has it? I opened the investigation file. You deliberately scheduled our most important presentation on my religious holiday after my leave was approved by the COO. That was a legitimate business decision. The client specifically cited our handling of diversity as their reason for walking away. I interrupted. Their CEO is an interfaith advocate who was appalled by your comments. Devin's expression hardened. So you've won. Got my job, made your point. What happens now? Now you have a choice. You've been reassigned to the analytics team as a senior data specialist, reporting to me. That's a demotion, he protested. It's an opportunity to remain employed despite documented discrimination that exposed the company to legal liability. Devin leaned forward. You've been building a case against me for years. I've been protecting myself through documentation for years, I corrected. There's a difference. He stood abruptly. I won't work under someone who... Who what? I challenged. Someone who earned their position through excellence despite obstacles? Someone who understands the value of diverse perspectives? Or someone who simply expects equal treatment under company policy and the law? Devin fell silent. Your new desk is in the analytics section. Orientation begins at 10 a.m. After he left, I released a breath I'd been holding for 7 years. The power dynamics had shifted, but revenge wasn't my goal. Systemic change was. Over the next weeks, I implemented new policies with Marielle's full support. We created a transparent calendar system where all time-off requests, religious, personal, or vacation, followed the same approval process. No manager could unilaterally deny time off without HR review. Most importantly, we established mandatory training on religious accommodation laws and inclusive leadership. When Devin attempted to undermine these changes through back-channel complaints to his executive friends, Marielle shut it down immediately. "The documentation speaks for itself," she told him in a meeting I attended. "You're fortunate to remain employed here. I suggest focusing on your new role rather than relitigating the past." Devin's resistance eventually gave way to grudging compliance. He performed his analytics duties adequately but avoided team gatherings and kept interaction minimal. When he did speak to me, it was with cold professionalism that barely masked his resentment. 3 months into my leadership, an unexpected opportunity arose. Eliana Johnson, CEO of Johnson Enterprises, requested a meeting with our executive team. She was impressed by how quickly we addressed the situation, Marielle explained. She wants to discuss potentially working together after all. During the meeting, Ms. Johnson spoke candidly about why she'd walked away from our proposal. "When your former director dismissed religious accommodation as optional, it raised serious concerns about your company values," she explained. "But your response, promoting the person who stood her ground and implementing systemic changes, demonstrated integrity." She turned to me. "I understand you're now leading the department?" "Yes," I confirmed. "We've made significant changes to ensure all team members receive equal respect for their identities and needs." "I'd like to hear more about those changes," she said, "and discuss reviving our partnership with your team at the helm." 2 weeks later, we signed a contract with Johnson Enterprises, larger than the original proposal. Our team celebrated the win, and I noticed even Devin seemed impressed, despite himself. As months passed, our department thrived under the new inclusive approach. Team members began sharing aspects of their identities they'd previously kept hidden: cultural traditions, family responsibilities, personal challenges. Productivity increased as people felt more fully accepted. Ironically, the religious discrimination I'd experienced led to improvements benefiting everyone. A pregnant team member received better accommodations. A colleague caring for an ailing parent got flexible scheduling. Another team member's cultural New Year celebration received the same respect as Christmas holidays. 8 months into my leadership role, time-off request forms for the upcoming quarter arrived on my desk. Among them was Devin's, requesting 3 days for a golf tournament, the same days as our quarterly planning session. I remembered all the times he'd denied my single day of religious observance while approving similar recreational requests for others. How simple it would be to reject his request, citing operational needs as he'd done to me repeatedly. Instead, I approved it and adjusted the planning session schedule. When I returned the signed form, Devin looked surprised. "This is approved?" "Yes. Everyone deserves time for what matters to them. Even though it's just golf? What matters to you doesn't need to matter to me to be respected," I replied. "That's the point you missed all those years." Something shifted in his expression, not quite gratitude, but recognition. 2 weeks later, he stopped by my office. "I've been reviewing our demographic data for the client satisfaction report," he said, placing a folder on my desk. "There's something interesting you should see." The analysis showed our client retention had improved 22% since implementing inclusive policies. New client acquisition from diverse ownership backgrounds had increased 31%. "These numbers are significant," I noted. "They are," Devin agreed. "It appears your approach has measurable business benefits beyond the ethical considerations." Coming from him, this was monumental acknowledgement. "Thank you for highlighting this," I said. "Would you present these findings at the next executive meeting?" He seemed taken aback by the opportunity. "If you think that would be appropriate." "I do. The data speaks for itself, and you understand the analytics better than anyone." After Devin left, I reflected on how far we'd come. His presentation to executives the following week was thorough and professional. He presented the business case for inclusion without personal commentary, letting the numbers tell the story of our department's transformation. As my annual holy day approached again, I submitted my time-off request, still documenting everything out of ingrained habit. The difference was, I now signed my own approval, with a backup plan already in place for my absence. The day before my observance, Devin stopped by my office. I'll be covering the client call tomorrow while you're out, he said, referencing the responsibility chart I'd created. Thank you, I replied. All the materials are in the shared folder. He hesitated in the doorway. Your religious day, it's important to you. It wasn't quite a question. Yes, I said simply. It connects me to my heritage, my family, and my values. He nodded. I'll make sure everything runs smoothly. The next morning, as I sat in prayer with my family, my phone remained blissfully silent. No panicked messages, no manufactured emergencies. For the first time in 8 years, I observed my holy day in complete peace, present with my loved ones and our traditions. When I returned to work, I discovered everything had proceeded perfectly in my absence. Devin had handled the client call professionally and even resolved an issue without escalation. How was your day off? Zoe asked as I settled back at my desk. Exactly what it should be, I replied, uninterrupted. 6 months later, Marielle called me to her office. The executive team has been reviewing our progress, she said. The changes in your department have been remarkable. Improved performance, higher retention, and stronger client relationships. The team deserves the credit, I replied. They embraced the changes wholeheartedly. Not everyone would have succeeded in your position, especially with your former boss now reporting to you. That required exceptional leadership. She slid a document across her desk. We're expanding our diversity initiatives company-wide. We'd like you to lead the effort as our new Chief Inclusion Officer, reporting directly to the CEO. I stared at the offer, momentarily speechless. This is because of your results, not your identity, Marielle clarified, though your personal experience has clearly informed your leadership approach. What about my current department? You'd oversee the transition to a new director. We have someone in mind who's demonstrated similar values. Who? I asked, curious. Devin Harper. I couldn't hide my surprise. Devin? He's undergone a significant transformation under your leadership. His recent presentation to the board about inclusion metrics was impressively data-driven. And he's completed every optional training module on cultural competence. That's true, I acknowledged, but given his history, people can change when held accountable, Marielle said. You'd still oversee all departmental policies in your new role, and he's explicitly committed to maintaining the inclusive systems you've built. I considered the symmetry of it, Devin taking over my role after I took over his. But this time, the department had been fundamentally transformed. The systems now protected everyone, regardless of who led them. 1 year to the day after Devin had crumpled my religious accommodation request in his fist, I sat in the executive boardroom as the newly appointed Chief Inclusion Officer. Across the table sat Devin, now Department Director, presenting our quarterly results. Religious and cultural accommodation requests are up 40% since implementing transparent policies, he reported. This indicates employees feel safer expressing their needs. Meanwhile, productivity has increased 27%, and unplanned absences have decreased 35%. He paused, making eye contact with me. The data conclusively shows that respecting employees' whole identities creates measurable business advantages beyond the obvious ethical imperatives. After the meeting, Devin approached me in the hallway. I've been meaning to say something to you, he said, his typical bravado absent. What I did, the discrimination, the scheduling tactics, all of it was wrong. I've spent a year working under the systems you created, seeing the results firsthand. Are you apologizing? I asked, surprised. Yes, unequivocally. I made decisions based on prejudice disguised as business needs. You've proven those assumptions entirely false. I nodded, accepting his words. Thank you for saying that. Your holy day is coming up next week, he noted. Everything's prepared for your absence. The team won't even need to contact you. That's how it should have been all along, I said. He nodded. I understand that now. As I walked away, I realized my revenge hadn't been taking Devin's job or making him report to me. It hadn't even been exposing his discrimination to company leadership. My true revenge was transforming the entire system so completely that even Devin, the architect of my previous struggles, now advocated for the very accommodations he once denied me. When my holy day arrived the following week, I observed it in perfect peace, surrounded by family, without a single work interruption. My phone remained silent by choice, not necessity. My religious practice was finally respected as essential, not optional. The most powerful revenge wasn't punishment. It was creating lasting change that made discrimination impossible to perpetuate, even by those who once weaponized it. My grandmother, watching me pray with genuine peace for the first time in years, squeezed my hand. "You seem different this year," she observed. "Lighter." I smiled. "I am. I finally have what I always wanted, not special treatment, just equal respect." That, ultimately, was the greatest victory of all. If my story resonated with you, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us share more stories of workplace justice and empowerment. Have you ever stood up against discrimination at work? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story might give someone else the courage to speak up. Remember, documentation is power. Even when it feels like nothing is changing, keep building your case. Change might come slowly, but when it does, it can transform entire systems. Thank you for listening to my journey from discrimination to leadership. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's getting better and creating change that lifts everyone up.